Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing the biggest winners from NFL draft weekend, Sam, because it's all about recapping the draft. So let's get into it. Who are the biggest winners from draft weekend?
I think the single biggest winner to me is the Philadelphia Eagles. When you factor in the A.J. Brown trade, which I think is a fair thing to do, given that it happened, during the draft, they get A.J. Brown, the best receiver in this draft. They get Jordan Davis. They get Nakobe Dean, who is one of the steals of the entire draft. That is a really nice draft that absolutely materially moves this team forwards on both sides of the ball. And then in the middle, you get a guy like Cam Jurgens, who is your heir apparent to Jason Kelce, doesn't need to play right away, but is a useful addition as well. I just think the Eagles had pretty much a fantastic draft start to finish.
Yeah, I'm going to say it many times throughout the week. Love the Eagles, love what they did. I completely agree that they're the biggest winners. And within the Eagles, the other big winner is A.J. Brown, because he did get that nice new contract. Probably was going to get it anyway, but just wasn't in Tennessee.
I think A.J. Brown is a winner there. I think Devontae Smith is a winner there because all of a sudden he doesn't need to be that number one alpha. He can develop as a clear-cut number two complement to A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts, is a winner.
Jalen Hurts is a winner.
They bring in that missing skill set, the big-bodied, contested catch, run after the catch kind of guy, the missing piece of that Philadelphia receiving core as well. So there's so many winners surrounding the whole Philadelphia Eagles and everything about that draft.
Those who have already listened to some of our recaps might not be surprised that I'll say the Ravens are my big winners. I think they were fantastic as from a process standpoint, from a who they picked standpoint. A couple things that I think really stood out, right? You trade Marquise Brown for a first-round pick, covered that quite a bit. You get 3 years out of him after drafting him in the first round, trade him for an equivalent pick. Great business there. Traded down, still got Tyler Linderbaum, so you probably got two potential starters in Tyler Linderbaum at center, plus Kyle Hamilton in the first round. And then the next two picks for the Ravens, David Ojabo in round 2, and then Travis Jones in round 3, both of those guys were mocked in the first round quite often. And say what you want about, it was just mock drafts or whatever. We're talking about enough people around the NFL believe that those were first-round caliber players. Ojabo, of course, has the injury. Travis Jones, he fell for whatever reason. But, all right, so you've got 4 potential starters. We'll see when Ojabo gets back. And then the other part that I thought the Ravens did a great job at, and I think it was highlighted in some article today too, they thought it was a deep draft. We've talked analytically, the draft has a big steep drop-off after round 4. So they drafted 6 times in round 4. I mean, it was just using the numbers to play to their strengths, and they may have found a couple players there as well, including Daniel Faalele, another guy that was mocked in the first round at one point. Jalen Armour-Davis, I think, could start at corner down the road. Charlie Kolar at tight end. Isaiah Likely at tight end. So they stocked up on positions that they use and with players that could actually see the field. So much to love about the Ravens draft and their entire process.
Don't forget the punter.
Punter's a starter.
The fact that they brought in a couple of guys that have, a lot of guys actually that fit the mold of players they've had and had success with in the past, like Jalen Armour-Davis, Alabama corner. They've obviously got that pipeline from Alabama with Ozzie Newsome, and the connection there and all the Alabama corners they've had in the past, like Marlon Humphrey, Daniel Faalele. Baltimore had success getting a behemoth tackle that had abysmal workouts in Orlando Brown Jr., right? They're going to try and repeat the trick with Faalele, a guy that barely played football until he was a late teenager, absolute mammoth of a guy, terrible workout numbers. They're going to see if they can do it again. Travis Jones, and they've had, again, extended success with Travis Jones-shaped bodies on the interior, right? Brandon Williams, Michael Pierce. They've had this run of dudes that look a lot like Travis Jones and have been more productive, even as pass rushers, than people think they should be, given the way they look. And Travis Jones has that kind of skill set. So I love the players that Baltimore picked up in those mid rounds. And as you say, stockpiling those picks in the first place was a smart thing to be doing.
Yeah, good job by the Ravens. And I think they, helped a roster that had started to have a couple holes in a few spots. I think it was a really good draft for them. Who else do you have for winners, Sam?
The Atlanta Falcons. I think pretty much another draft that top to bottom is pretty outstanding. The Falcons, remember, were one of those teams. People didn't think it was going to happen, but they were a possibility to draft a quarterback in round one, right? The top 10, 8 overall. Would they be the team to pull the trigger on a QB there? They didn't do it. They grab it. Drake London, obviously the number one receiver on the board for them, given that he was the first one. But then just from that point on, every pick was a bargain. It was good value at some point. Arnold Ebiketie, the top of the second round. Troy Anderson, later in the second round. Those two guys are fantastic athletes that should help a defense that is badly in need of just an injection of talent across the board. They get the quarterback, Desmond Ridder, in the third round, which is, I think, a great value spot for a guy that legitimately could start for them down the line. They've got Marcus Mariota as a quarterback starting right now. They're in full rebuild mode. Mariota might not be any kind of long-term solution. Ridder's probably going to get a chance to win that job at some point. And then just, working your way down the draft, they've gotten great value. They draft a running back in the 5th round. And then, by the way, today or yesterday, Mike Davis gets released. So they are putting a pathway for these guys to get on the field.
Yeah, Tyler Algier from BYU, one of the guys I really liked, is just a good, solid running back. You get him in round 5. All the guys that you mentioned, some juice off the edge, and anytime you could take a shot on a quarterback who at least was rumored to go in the 1st round, you get him in the 3rd. I think overall good process by the Falcons. With their 8 picks, I think they just maximized their 8 picks in this particular draft. Right now, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription. Use the code NFLPOD. You get all of PFF's locked article content, fantasy football rankings, and projections are coming soon. And, of course, the data and grades for the entire 2021 season and the upcoming 2022 season. And you get so much more. It's promo code NFLPOD. You get 25% off any subscription. All right, I'm going to think outside the box here for biggest winners, Sam. How about Kenny Pickett? Kenny Pickett's the biggest winner in this draft. You sent me the numbers that, kind of highlighted how much money he made. But I'm just looking at it from an opportunity standpoint. All of a sudden, Kenny Pickett's the only first 2-round quarterback in this draft. And he looks like he's just so much better than every quarterback because the Steelers believed in him. They believed in him enough to take him at 20, and he's going to have every opportunity to win that job and be the Steelers quarterback of the future.
Yeah, it's one of the great what ifs in this draft is, what if the Steelers don't take Kenny Pickett at 20 overall? How far does he slide, right? Given what we know with the rest of these quarterbacks, because nobody loved this class, and most people had them very tightly bunched, right? Whether it was Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, there wasn't a lot of separation between these guys. So, but there was a huge separation between the draft position. Kenny Pickett, the only round 1 quarterback, nobody else. Like Ridder was the next guy, right, at number 74 or something.
Yep.
So if the Steelers don't take Kenny Pickett in the 1st round, he probably goes all the way to the Steelers in the 2nd round, which is 52. If they don't take him then, who knows how far he slides. But that difference, like the 1st round to the 2nd round, that's $5 million for Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is $5 million better off because the Steelers didn't want to wait and took him in the 1st instead of the 2nd round. That's the dictionary definition of winning on draft day.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a winner to me. My question is, are the Steelers happy with that? Clearly, Kenny Pickett's their number 1 quarterback, but for them, was it close between Pickett and Ridder and Malik Willis and all the guys? And would they do it over again? Knowing what they know now, would they say, actually, I'd rather have Desmond Ridder in the 3rd and then whatever 1st round other player I could have gotten? I just wonder if Pittsburgh is rethinking their strategy as well.
I mean, I think for the sake of their own sanity, they probably aren't going to pick too hard at that particular thread. But, some self-assessment might be making some phone calls and finding out where the rest of the NFL would have taken that guy just for future reference and, putting it in the data banks for the next time you draft. But, yeah, I suspect they might not love that answer if they dive into that question.
Any other winners you want to highlight, Sam?
Yeah, Carolina. I think the Panthers put themselves in a horrible position heading into this draft. They had pick number 6, and then they didn't pick again until pick number 137. And they're maybe the most quarterback needy team in the NFL. So they're looking at a situation where they don't think there's a quarterback worthy of number 6, but the next spot to draft one is 137. That's just a nightmare. They end up staying the course, I guess. They take Ike Ekwonu, the tackle from NC State, with their first pick, a guy that was being talked about as a potential number 1 overall pick at various points. They get a tackle, and then they have the patience to sit there and watch this quarterback slide from the rest of the group. And eventually they decide one has come within range. They jump up from 137 to 94, and they end up drafting Matt Corral, who, again, was one of these quarterbacks that was talked about at the bottom of the first round. Would he go to Detroit, number 32, whatever? Matt Corral was a potential, one of the top quarterbacks in this class. They get him in the third round, and they've come away with one of the best players in the draft and a quarterback that can potentially start over Sam Darnold. Whether or not, you like Matt Corral, and obviously the league doesn't love him given what just happened to that entire group, it's difficult to write down a scenario where this could have gone better for Carolina. Therefore, I think they have to be one of the winners.
They got one of the top quarterbacks. They got an option to battle with Sam Darnold. I was going to say Sam Darnold's one of the biggest winners, though, because he's going to go in as the starter. And I don't think they're going to bring someone else in free agency. If they had not drafted a quarterback, they're probably looking to Baker Mayfield and to whoever else, Jimmy Garoppolo and whoever else is available.
No, that's Drew Lock, because Seattle literally didn't add anything. Carolina at least brought in a guy that can steal Sam Darnold's job. Seattle brought a running back in.
Yeah, but Drew Lock, Seattle can still bring in a veteran. Carolina's still probably just going to go with the, third round rookie. So here's the ultimate biggest winner, though, Sam. It's the Los Angeles Rams, because they already used their first round pick to win a Super Bowl. Does that count? They're the biggest winners. No. They're excited. Plus, they were just drinking, having a grand old time on the first, couple rounds of the draft. So the Rams are the biggest winners. Let us know, who are your biggest winners of the NFL draft?